So Matt, how's it going, mate? Another week.
I know bad, mate. Just kind of Groundhog Week. You know what I mean? Like, well, we're back to the start again.
Pretty much, mate. It feels like it does feel a wee bit like sort of Groundhog Week with Groundhog Day. My days are like, Matt, it's weird. I'm getting to work Monday to Friday now, and I've never ever done that unless I've requested it.
Aye,
And I'm finding that there's some advantages, but there are some disadvantages. See, when you get to that Friday afternoon, man, your head's absolutely fucking melted. Like I can't even face looking at things. Whereas normally I would get like a breakup, and even if you have like
aye,
maybe like 3 days off and then you're on for 10 days, it's not quite the same as what I'm finding is 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days
right.
off, and it's maybe even psychological. Who knows? But you were talking last
It's
time
a bit
about
of adjustment.
aye, that's it. It's just adjustments need to get made, and I need to just manage myself more than anything else. But you were talking last time about like we were talking last time about um what addiction and how we're getting on. I was just wondering like how you found this week with it.
I mean, I'm still, another week sober. I've been involved in a few, like Zoom, Facebooky quiz things where I've obviously been like virtually around sort of people who are drinking. And Stacey, my partner, hosted one the last couple of nights. Obviously, herself and Shannon were there. So you know, I've been in a couple of social situations where drink's been on the go. Um, it has been a wee. There have been a few cravings, like Friday, Saturday night trigger. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you look around and a lot of other folk are out there enjoying themselves at the weekend as they always would. You know what I mean? So I just really keeping the cravings down has been the biggest challenge this week. But it's on my head. You know what I mean? Like my body's was a good couple of weeks clear now. I wasn't really at any major peak in sort of my drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all it's, as you say, it's boredom really. You know what I mean? Like boredom plays a big thing, as we were saying last week, that you're sitting about on a Friday or Saturday night thinking about it more than anything else really. You know what I mean?
Aye, absolutely, mate. That's it. I mean, I think that is the main one for me. Is just boredom. Just makes me want to just do anything to sort of fill my time. Something that I
Aye.
suppose you can work on. But it's good to hear that you. And I did notice when we were doing the quiz the other night that Stacey was sipping on a beer and you had a pint glass iron brew. So I did have that sort of mental to go. Well done, Mark. Do you know what I mean? Because that is the
Aye.
time. And it is the time when you could easily just make that wee excuse into it. Like, do you know what? A couple of beers while
Totally.
I'm doing this quiz. But it was good to see that you were on Iron Brew, mate.
I'm just going to keep plugging away with it. As I say, I've had on and off over the years. The new, I'm still fairly determined to stay off it. But who knows? Maybe the lockdown will crack and I'll be like fucking party time again. Who knows? But
I seen a lot of that on
right
Twitter.
now, I'm definitely still sort of solidly of the mind that while the lockdown and all that's happening, it's not the best idea. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Seen a lot of that on Twitter. People sort of making their plans for when lockdown ends and what you're going to do and what's your drink going to do. I'm pretty sure that the pubs in Glasgow might be able to recover 3 months worth of.
And a couple of weekends probably. Some of
Aye.
them, aye.
Something that I noticed, like about the Zoom quiz personally. I mean, not to sound like a fucking negative. No, you know what I mean? Like, don't want to be too
Aye.
negative, but that is like literally my idea of a fucking nightmare.
Aye.
I mean, socializing in general is like a laborious task for me in the last sort of few years.
Yep.
And I mean, the circumstance around that, well, there's a couple of particular things. One, there was people there that I didn't know and that I've never
Yeah.
met. And I think even like meeting people in person is one thing, but meeting people virtually is another kettle of fish.
It is quite awkward.
Hmm.
Stacey's asked me a few times to sit in on like private chats with like her work colleagues and stuff like that, and I've just no felt comfortable. So the Zoom quiz that Stacey hosted was definitely also the first time I met a few of those people. So it is quite an odd experience to meet somebody sort of virtually.
Aye, absolutely. I mean, when I'm on my work, I mean, Zoom and WebEx and Skype are used all the time in my
Hmm.
work to do conference calls, and suppose they're handy tools for shit like that. Do you know what I mean? To get
Oh, aye.
people like in the one place that you normally kind of get in the one place. But I'm
Hmm.
like mute turn the camera off and just put my headphones in and just sit and listen most of the time, unless I get
Yep.
like properly triggered by something that somebody said in the call. But I meet
I was
new
going to
people.
say, there's no way you're sitting in silence for an hour. It just
No,
doesn't happen.
but aye, cheers. But that's like my idea of a nightmare. I mean, like meeting new people's one thing. Meeting new people sober's another thing that I don't particularly like today, and even just any sort of social situations. But I woke up on Sunday and I was thinking about like I got a real buzz out that quiz on Saturday night, and
Right.
really enjoyed not just like the quiz, but being in the chat, seeing everybody's faces, a couple of
Mm-hmm.
people that I've not seen obviously in a while, and also like we were on mute and there was a couple of us were texting backwards and forwards.
Yep.
And well, I mean, I was literally crying. We were on mute, so you couldn't. Don't know if you noticed, but I was crying with laughter because one of the questions that Stace asked was, "Who's made billions for selling windows?" And one of my mates put in C.R. Smith, which was like, but he questioned. I mean, he questioned that.
Aye.
He was like, "Well, it's true. Should I not get a point?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm not sure C.R. Smith quite fall into the category of billionaires, but definitely
Aye.
made millions for double glazing
Selling
windows."
double glazes in the old Strathclyde region in the mid-90s. I don't think it was enough to get you into the billions category,
Aye,
but I'm sure
100%.
they made a fair few quid for themselves, you know what I mean,
Fucking
Mark?
right. Probably made more money out of fucking Celtic and Rangers fans putting windies into their house because they were in front of their fucking kit. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Aye.
one of the things that I thought was hilarious as well was that I was sitting absolutely in tears and Sean was like, "Who's C.R. Smith?" And I was like, "Fuck's sake, right?" I had to explain to her what C.R. Smith was and why it's significant in Scottish culture because it was in front of Celtic and Rangers taps for, I don't know, what, 10 years or something like that. But
Oh, ages, man.
we had like a sort of side chat going on that was fucking
Mhm.
hilarious. So that was another thing that added to the enjoyment. But what else? I noticed this as well. People's faces, like you could see people. It's almost like a really good exercise in sort of body language because you could see people, especially during the round that was music. Now,
Mhm.
I'm a big music fan, obviously, played in bands for fucking years and years. So hearing
Yep.
the first 5 seconds of a song, I know what it is pretty much, unless I don't know.
Aye.
So I can tell you what it is, otherwise I just don't know what the song is and I'm not that bothered.
Mhm.
But you could see people getting proper pissed off that they couldn't hear. And
Aye.
it was a good exercise in sort of like reading body language and
This
stuff.
was one of the ones that I found a bit odd because we'd attended my first Zoom quiz the week before, where Stacey's cousin had done a music round on very similar terms, and it also did not work through the microphone and the iPad that we were using.
Now,
So the fact that a week later we then copied that sort of model straight through the bat, I was a bit like, this didn't work last week. Why were we doing it this week? You know what I mean? Like, but
literal
I
insanity happening, like just doing it the
I
same way.
just cut. I
I
just
think somebody nailed it.
15 faces looking back at you going, I can't
I
hear.
can't hear that. I think whoever it was that shouted out nailed it, man. They think it's background noise, so it's trying to cut it out.
Hmm.
I don't know if there's a way that you could. I was trying to think. I wonder if there's a way that you could just share it through your
No.
phone or something. Who knows, man? But I'll tell you what, I did well in that round, so I don't give a shit. Like, but people
Aye,
couldn't hear it. I could hear the first 5 seconds. But anyway,
exactly.
that's by the by.
Know that you're competitive in that respect.
No, not at all. It's fucking raging. I didn't win, but anyway, the thing that really sort of piqued my interest was the fact that I really enjoyed meeting new people in a sort of strange, awkward setting, and I really
Hmm.
enjoyed. Um, After it, I felt like it really gave me a boost, and it just made me sort of reflect on why is it that when it comes to social situations, whether it be friends or family, I make the plans and if it's far away, say it's like 4 weeks away, and somebody says to me, "Do you want to go to a gig in 4 weeks?" My initial reaction is fucking, yep, of course. I love music. I
Absolutely.
want to see my mates. Aye, let's go and do it. But when it comes to the day of the event, I get this fucking horrible anxiety where I just cannot be fucked doing this. I just want to sit
Yeah.
in. I just want to um, fucking roll a joint, put on Netflix, whatever it might be. And
Hmm.
one of life's actual great pleasures is when somebody texts you like half an hour before you're due to leave to go, "I can't be fucked with this, can you?" And you're just like, fucking yes. Like, no, I can't be fucked
You're
and let's
playing
just leave it.
pure cancellation roulette. You know what I mean?
You're hoping that you get the right reaction when you send that text
Uh,
message, that's for fucking sure. But it did really make me think about it. And I think that over the, like I said a couple of minutes ago and fucking many times, I played in bands, and bands as a social, or gigs as a social situation. And when I thought about it, I think I've put this weird sort of pressure on myself to be the life and soul of the party. And when I'm no, and to be that life and soul of the party, because it isn't my natural way of being, is like being sort of extrovert. I do really need the sort of social lubricants that have popped
Aye.
up in the past, do you know what I mean? Which have ended up in
Aye.
sort of destructive behaviour.
Frontman Shieldsy and Vodka Shieldsy have got a lot more in common with each other than everyday Shieldsy, definitely.
Aye, for sure, mate. Just the fact that we had alter egos for when we were drinking, and we had like fucking wee side games of like stealing posters off people's walls when we went to house parties. It
It's just pure nonsense.
it just shows you the sort of level that we were at. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
But I think that when I was talking about it, I was talking to Sean quite extensively. It just took about half an hour just to sort of just talk it out to get my sort of like through my head. And I think that because I was asking people to come to social situations, and it just put this fucking weird sort of pressure on me to be that sort of like, I'm not making people's nights, but it just made me not want to do it. And I think that I've ended up in this sort of weird headspace when it comes to it. But after Saturday night, and I suppose this is what I've been talking about quite a lot, is what I need to reflect on the changes I need to make after lockdown. After Saturday night, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put social situations like going out, not just like doing a podcast with you, which is a great sort of social release and all the rest of it, but seeing other people and going and seeing friends and family, I'm going to put it in the same bracket as what I do with the gym and we do meditation, because there's days where I cannot be fucked working out, there's days where I cannot be fucked meditating, but I do it because I realise that at the other side,
there's an actual benefit.
There's a benefit to it, and I think that that's a realisation that I'm coming to more and more, that spending time with, like, say, yourself outside the podcast and Richie, Dave, Darren, whoever it might be, and going and seeing my nephew, my mum and my sister, although when I'm just about to do it, I'm like, for fuck's sake, I can't be fucked with this. There is an actual real positive benefit for me to do that, do you know what I mean?
I think our numbers are probably really starting to appreciate like socialisation as a form of self-care more than ever before, just because of the scenario that we're in. I mean, I was up on Saturday, me and Stace took our wander around Huggy Lock, and it was beautiful, nice and warm. And, you know, Stace has had epilepsy for most of the last sort of 5 or 6 years, and it has a really big impact on her ability to go out. So things like gigs and that are a no-no because, you know, the speakers and vibrations can trigger her and stuff like that. So it does really limit our social like interaction. She is a very sociable person, and what she was saying as we walked in Huggy was just like, I'm not going to take my times where I'm fitting well enough to go out and see somebody for granted. You know what I mean? Like, it becomes easy for her to, once she's had 3 bad days, to have 1 day to recover, where part of that day could have maybe been going to lunch or any other number of other things that she always loves doing that she maybe doesn't do as much. So I think on the other side of this, that's certainly something that I know Stacey will be looking at more. I'm probably going to be a bit more conscious of it. I mean, I do enjoy my own time, my own space and stuff like that. That's never really going to change, but I'm going to be more conscious of that moment you were talking about where you're sitting playing chicken with each other. You know what I mean? Like, where you're just waiting for the text message or the WhatsApp to come in and go, look, mate, can we, you know, do this another night? And you've seen who blinks first. In those scenarios, I'm definitely going to be more conscious of no being that guy. You know what I mean?
Man. Aye, definitely, man. Aye, man. I think for somebody like Stacey, can imagine that having that sort of social ability ripped away from her and the fashion that it did must have had such a huge impact on her. Because, like you said, man, she was the actual life and soul of the party. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I went to parties with, like, say, you and Stacey, I knew I could take a back seat because Stacey she's actually like that. She's naturally like the life and soul of everything. So,
she likes people.
See, for a pair of people that sit down with like strangers on basically like a weekly basis and talk to them for like an hour and a bit about a completely unrelated subject that we're not involved in, sometimes we are a pair of miserable bastards when it comes to sitting down and meeting people.
We probably need to be a wee bit more willing to actually like engage with folk on a real level outside of the podcast, definitely.
Aye, absolutely, mate. What's been going on this week then? Like, what have we? I mean, this week's been another fucking absolute rabble in the political spectrum, but
oh my god,
it's been ridiculous, hasn't it?
I think probably like best place to start, and ordinarily, we'd reserve, sort of a wee bit towards the end of the shows to kind of like round up some of the batshit mental stuff that Trump and his cronies have been up to. But I think, this week he's went to a new level. Ordinarily, we'd prioritise, like British and Scottish stories. But I mean, this guy, I think at one point was like somewhat the top 15 trending things on Twitter when he said this nonsense. So it's got a bit. I don't know, man. Like he's the Tiger King of fucking news stories here. So it's just got like it's just descended into a level of nonsense that you're just like, I can't believe this is where we are now. You know what I mean? Like,
aye, absolutely. I hope he does make a music video like the guy for Tiger King. I'd like to hear Trump like.
The only thing is, I singing about Hillary.
Instead of Carol Baskin, Hillary Clinton. Aye, absolutely.
Exactly.
All we need is for her to fucking off Bill, and then that's us. We're off and running.
I'm sure there's a few rumours that folk has already been off that we could probably slot in there. But aye, Trump has decided that, this week he was going to just talk about the possibility of injecting disinfectant and using UV light. So essentially, he wants to use bleach and sunlight to, kill the coronavirus. And I'm fairly sure that if that was possible, we'd have probably worked it out already. I mean, this guy was just up at the podium, like fucking freestyling. You know what I mean? Like he was just riffing. You know what I mean? He was just had got up there and started talking with no idea what direction his sentence was going in. And like, I felt for the wee woman that was sitting sort of stage right where he was like, we can look into this, right? You know what I mean? And is it sort of, there's shots that panning in towards her face and she's just like, Jesus Christ.
Aye, it's getting the pure sound of silence written all over into that video of her face. I mean, something that jumped out at me about that situation is like the level of self-preservation that's going on amongst a lot of people. I mean, this isn't just in Trump's administration, this is across the fucking planet. But for somebody that's, I mean, she's a doctor, is that right?
Yeah.
Like, for somebody who's actually like went through all of that education and to get to that point where you're sitting in like the Oval Office or you're sitting in the press room, you've had to.
You're a national authority in yourself.
Exactly, man. Like, why is she no fucking jumping up? And other than the fact that he would pull the trigger and sack her in the fucking bat of an eyelid, like, but that to me doesn't really sort of sit well with me that we've got experts that are just standing by while fucking elected idiots.
Yeah.
Basically go up and do an improvised stand up. I mean, that was like fucking stand up comedy that he was doing. I mean, it was that laughable.
It was like presidential policy pure off the cuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I've never seen him, work it out in that kind of manner before. I mean, I think when it comes to the self-preservation, like, we talk about self-preservation in the sort of metaphorical sense when it comes to somebody's career, but like, when you look at some of the reactions to the American CMO Fauci, he actually has at times interrupted press events to be like, no, that's not cool. And what he's got off the back here has been incredible. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know if the self-preservation we're talking about just is restricted to people's careers.
Right.
I think people in these scientific disciplines that are associated with this in America might find themselves, on this end of some real aggro if they're not careful. And I don't know if that plays a part. If it does, I would personally say it's reasonable and fair. You know what I mean? Like,
right. I suppose. I mean, as Trumpistan, after all.
All you can really do is give him the advice. You're never going to really influence how he uses that advice. So just give him the advice and you've done your job. You know what I mean?
I mean, we're watching him drown. We're watching this guy sink. But I don't know if it's quite going to hit his popularity. I don't know if it's going to hit his 2020 campaign. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like we were talking about in previous episode, and we've seen videos during the week which were actually like really shocking and scary to me, where the guy's dressed up in the fucking George Washington outfit with a mask and he's got a fucking AR-15 and they're standing.
Assault rifle,
that's scary shit, dude.
Legislative steps.
That's so scary. I mean, what is that telling people? What is that telling the world about what sort of state that we're in America? Other than, I mean, we've seen them as well go out and protest because they want to go to the barbers and get their fucking hair cut. And they're saying, like, let us out of lockdown so that we can go and get our nails done. And it's just like, that's wild to me. That's so
It
wild
is
to me.
absolutely. I mean, I think you probably just need to look at the fact that how many, politicians and public figures this week had to come out and tell people not to drink bleach as a result of
Well,
what Trump had said. So, I mean, when you look at some of the other things he said, it's completely understandable that some nutters are out on the steps of the legislatures with, assault rifles, and doesn't make it right, but there is a, consequence and response kind of thing that, action response that happens when the president gives advice for the podium, you know what I mean, behind that seal, and like the advice he's giving out is absolutely terrible, you know what I mean? Like,
aye, man. I'd seen a thing on Twitter that was saying that New York had seen the amount of people that went to A&E for ingesting bleach over the course of the 24 hours post his speech had tripled. And I mean, two things to that. One,
yeah,
why is there a statistical number of people that are ingesting bleach on a daily basis in fucking New York? But two, that number tripled, like you're saying, man. There is an actual real world measurement for sort of cause and effect when this fucking idiot gets up to speak and just decides, like you were saying earlier, to riff off of the back of what. I mean, it feels like to me that he's fucking scrolling through his Instagram feed and one of the mad weird pop-up ads that come in.
yeah,
When you click on it, it takes you to a website that you're like, that's not a real fucking website. They're going to steal my fucking card details if I
yeah.
put them in and try and buy this. But he's been like, had a wee pop-up where it's like, yeah, why don't you try this new miracle fucking bleach elixir or whatever it might be? And he's went up and went, let's look into this.
You
Just
could do
because
some serious damage by like sponsoring content on Twitter that's directed at Trump. I mean, when you look at the state of his tweets, it's clear that he still tweets himself, so he's in charge of that phone. So if you were to actively like target him with ads on Twitter, you could probably do some real world damage.
we should maybe try and do something like that. Remember when sort of Scottish football, I think it was Celtic and Hibs fans maybe came together to sort of retweet a story and see where it went, and it was like within 3 hours it was on the Sun website, and everybody was like,
Yeah.
"Aye, let's look at the origin of
the
that."
guys that get banned for Iraq. John Oliver did it a few times. So he did where he takes out ads on the favourite news channel of Trump, the news programme that he references all the time, like Fox and Friends, and he took out an advert in the first 15 minutes about specific legislation that he wanted to influence Trump with, but he did it with like a pure old school cowboy and all the rest. It was he was speaking the pure Trumpian language to him.
Right.
So
Did he get him?
jokingly being done. I don't think so. No. But I mean, as I say, in terms of the advice he's giving, it's mental. It's pure scattergun because I think at this point he's now just trying to throw enough shit at the wall so that if something actually sticks, he can point to it during the election and go, look, I was the first one that was talking about injecting bleach. I was the first one that was talking about injecting UV light and all these other types of things. And like, it's just, Hail Mary.
Aye,
at this
absolutely.
Point, really.
I hope nobody tries to use bleach as sunscreen, go out and sunbathe. I mean, we've had the warmest weekend in Scottish history, I think, for May. I'll bet there's a few that have been sitting with their fucking bleach cocktails. Pure, save me, Jesus, please, with your beautiful UV lights.
I mean, he's obviously been taking out he's been taking out his daily briefings as a result of it. So his own sort of press team have benched him. You know what I mean? The leader of the free world finds himself benched by a PR executive because he can't keep his shit together. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. I think one of the things that you've been kind of alluding to, and this is where I was kind of like aiming towards with the sort of Tiger King comment, is where Trump being a bit batshit on the podium really isn't like staggering news because we've seen it time and again in recent weeks. But where this one gets really mental is where he appears to have got this idea for, because obviously injecting bleach is not official government policy anywhere. You know what I mean? Clearly. Yeah. But The Guardian ran a story saying that there is a company in America who, and I was tweeting about it on the Rebel City feed the other night just because I could not believe what I was reading. I actually thought I'd like checked the date on the article to make sure it was like April Fools and stuff like that. This company, they're an industrial producer of bleach, but they basically, for tax purposes, masquerade as a church. The CEO refers to himself as Archbishop. All right, they're a bleach company, right? He's Archbishop. They've been trying to ingratiate themselves with the White House to get involved in coronavirus and all these other things, thinking this is a good market for industrial bleach, as it potentially is, but no, the way Trump thinks.
Right.
Now, this mob, to maintain the facade of being a church, market their bleach as MMS, which is a miracle mineral solution. Right? It's just
Holy
bleach.
fuck.
It's fucking industrial bleach, right? But miracle mineral solution is how they promote it. And in the literature, they say that it can cure cancer, it can cure coronavirus, it can cure AIDS, all these other types of things, and even that it's like safe to put 6 to 8 drops of water in a child's glass of water.
Holy shit.
So they're advocating like giving this to kids. So obviously these letters have been getting petitioned to the White House. Trump, or someone who probably does a lot of Trump's reading, has seen this, either briefed him on it, or, as I say, he's had a glance at it and understood half the words on it. And then he's taken this idea without any sort of advice or any honing of the message out to, the podium, and went, why don't we look into injecting bleach? You know what I mean? Like,
That's insanity,
and that's
man.
where what, you know what I mean? Like, you're talking about pandemic policy, as you say, off the cuff, influenced by fake churches and fucking magic elixirs. Like, you know what I mean?
They're literally going back in time. Like, they're going to go back to the
that's-
Wild West with the fucking snake oil. Do you know what I mean? Where they're able to sell any sort of stupid fucking solution to any fucking problem out the back of fucking wagon to people.
Aye.
That's fucking crazy, man.
I think we're pretty much there if this one's to be believed. Do you know what I mean?
Aye,
man.
Wow, that's blown my mind, dude. I mean, that's insanity. I mean, you think it's bad here. You think the politics and the politicians that we've got in the UK are bad, but I don't think I would quite put any of them in the category of somebody who's read about a miracle mineral solution that includes bleach that they're trying to get you to put in your Wayne's baby bottle. I mean, what the fuck is that all about, man?
This is like they're punting bleach to Trump as if it's holy water, and he's buying it. You know what I mean? Like, so
well, the Reverend did say,
shows you,
the good Reverend. It's like what's the fucking the Mel Brooks movie Blazing Saddles, where he's pure Reverend every time the guy talks. So it's like that, man. It's like that level of fucking stupidity that we're moving into with this, man. It's getting fucking crazy. I think one of the scary things about America and the American situation is that the world sort of authorities are starting to cut them out of the conversation on how we can tackle this. And surely that's got to be a direct reaction to the fact that he's coming away with these batshit crazy ideas.
He's also got an America First policy, which means he's not looking to really, for his administration, to interact with outside bodies in this regard anyway. You know what I mean? So it's kind of consistent with his messaging and his actions to this point, even if it is extremely unhelpful for the American people not to be part of a worldwide sort of concerted effort to deal with this. I mean, he was trying to copyright bloody tests and, acquisition companies for Germany so that he could keep cures in America and stuff like that. So, yeah, none of that would, surprise me at this point. I think as well, like, what's really scary for me, and it's something that we'll maybe talk about in a US context now because that's where we've been, but it's starting to sort of pervade in the UK as well, as the pressure that politicians are now starting to come under to begin the reopening process. And I think Trump's scattergun, throw all sorts at the wall in the hope that I can be seen to be doing something, is at least partly driven by the pressure that business is now starting to put on him to actually open America. He's been talking about opening America since before it bloody shut. So he's clearly under pressure, clearly desperate to get things moving. And there is an obvious economic case that I get, but at the same time, we're still in a situation where health and people's well-being needs to take priority. I mean, I think one of the great examples for America this week was I think probably everybody's seen the video, the Las Vegas mayor, who was talking about, like, fuck coronavirus, like, let it sweep through Las Vegas and we'll act as a control group. We'll, remove all the restrictions and just let us get back to business. And you're going, so you'll be on the casino floors? And the mayor's like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
That's it, man. Like,
you know what I mean?
Kind of like back in when people are trying to say to politicians, send your kids to war, well, put yourself in the fucking firing line if you're so like adamant that this is either a non-starter or you're willing to put people out there as fucking guinea pigs to experiment on with like a fucking virus. I mean, that's just sort of pokes holes in the economic system in America a whole, or even just the idea of the American dream and sort of like liberty and libertarianism, when you've got two states, one Nevada, specifically Las Vegas, and another one Florida, who seem to be getting impacted so deeply and so hard by this, basically because their full economy, they don't take in enough tax receipts. So we know that a lot of people go to Florida to retire, not just because of the weather, of which it is immense, but it's because you don't pay tax in that state. So this sort of like harps back to the sort of like, we should be free and we don't pay tax and blah blah blah. But when shit that's so short sighted, because when shit like this hits, you need these reserves and you need people to pull their weight. But when their whole ideologue and like outlook in life is that I look out for me and I don't look out for anybody else, and my money's mine and all my resources are mine, like it doesn't work in this circumstance when they rely so heavily on tourist money, so people to come in to that sort of state or city to prop up their economy. When something like this happens going forward, they're going to need to find a new way to survive, because I'm sorry, but I would be absolutely fucking raging if somebody that I had elected suggests that I'll be a fucking guinea pig for them to see how this pans out. So we're going to end up in like the sort of what happened with the Spanish flu, where we came out early and a couple of 100,000 people died again, and then they went back into lockdown. And we hear this from politicians that seem sort of saying that we can absolutely stop this in its track if we do the right thing early enough. But if we don't, then it will go on and on and on and on and on. Yeah. So, aye, man, I think that's fucking batshit crazy to suggest that the citizens of Las Vegas should just get back to work and get back out there and open the casinos back up. Who the fuck is going to go there?
You know exactly. Who's booking flights to Las Vegas when, there's no, vaccine in place, whatever. But again, I think this is just an example of that, as I'm mentioning, the sort of types of pressure politically that American rule makers and sort of companies, CEOs, etc., are now starting to put on the president, because they want to get back to business. Because, as you say, some of them have got no other option but to, because there's no support there, there's no, additional help going to them to keep them tidied out until such times as things get back to normal. But I think the other one as well, like, as an example of this, is I seen last week that Mitch McConnell, the leader of the American Senate, was openly kind of contemplating letting states go bust. So you've got major cities like Las Vegas screaming to be coming out of lockdown, telling there's an unprecedented economic disaster otherwise, and then you've got the guys who are essentially running the country, really, the guys in the Senate, saying, well, if you go bankrupt, that's really on you. We're not going to bail you out. And like 39 of the governorships are Republican. So this is the Republican Party telling overwhelmingly Republican Senate governors that their states can go and basically fuck themselves. And you're like, what? That's immense pressure. Aye, man. Because if you're the president who is sworn the oath, let's say it's not Donald Trump, let's say it's somebody that actually takes oaths and shit seriously, who's takes the oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, having multiple states go bankrupt simultaneously is no defending and protecting the Union. No. So how would you sit back and let your own Senate just cut entire sections of the country off like that? Like, the rhetoric is getting really sort of high pressure there. And we're starting to see, I don't think we're seeing the same level of pressure applied here just yet, but I think we're now starting to see the beginnings of it. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of chat in the Telegraph, and you can see it coming out of the hill, can't you? You can see the whole, it's about economics. Economics are a fucking choice. Like, the whole idea that keeps always getting harped back to about there's no magic money tree, when we know that there fucking is. The recovery of this is going to be an interesting place, because we've seen what happens when the sort of, let's just say, the bottom 90% of people are made to pay debts through austerity.
And I think that there's going to be a serious outcry for other people to step up and take their fair share of this. There's definitely a choice there, and that's the kind of rhetoric that I'm sort of worried about, is that the newspapers are already set, or the news outlets are already setting people up for austerity on fucking steroids, where they're talking about how we're going to pay this back. But if we have the right people in the right places, it won't go down the way that it did the last time.
It doesn't have to.
Yeah, but see, as you talk about the States being left to go bankrupt, I mean, I listened to an interview with a guy who was a military strategist in Iraq and Afghan. I listened to an interview with him, and they asked him about what comparison, what global event can he put that's comparable to what we're seeing, and he had said that when they went into Afghanistan, that is the biggest comparison that he can make, and it's obviously not the same thing, war and virus, but the way that he made the comparison was through the fracturing of the different areas within Afghanistan, and how sort of civil war ended up happening between one warlord and another warlord, and he described something that has just piqued my interest when you've just said that, about them sort of ending up playing off, and we've seen it happening with the bidding war that's been happening with the PPE, state to state, or being made to bid. So they're going into direct competition with each other, and they predicted that if it goes down that road, they will end up where sort of everything will just become insular, and it will just get smaller and smaller. So it will be state versus state first of all. Well, first of all, what he said will happen, it'll be country versus country. We've already seen that, because it's all getting blamed on China. And the sort of Chinese government, and that we know the failings that happened there. And then it was Italy, especially here in Britain, the reporting of the Italy crisis was a devastating crisis in Italy, whereas when we look at our own sort of crisis that we're facing, it looks like it's worse than Italy. I know we're going to talk a wee bit about the numbers later, but he said that it would be it will be country playing off against each other, and they'll close the borders, and this is sort of authoritarian sort of steps. They'll start to close the borders, and they'll talk about how it's been foreigners that's brought the virus in, and then it'll go state by state, and then it might even go down to town by town and city by city. And that just sort of, I mean, that interview I listened to was the 30th of March, and now, like you're saying, that's exactly what we're seeing play out in America, is that it looks like they're just going to leave them hang out to dry.
Seems a fair comparison. I mean, that particular region in the Middle East is notoriously tribal, to I think Pakistan all the way through Iraq and Syria and all these, and we've seen a lot of that way the IS carry on. So I get the comparison to a certain extent, even though war and the virus are, as you say, sort of two sort of different things. But to go back to what we were just kind of on, these pressures we're seeing them in America, as I say, Las Vegas, McConnell, so on and so forth. It's bringing erratic decision making to their president. We're now starting to see, I think, what is the beginnings of that here, because in recent weeks, even in the last week, we're starting to see the likes of your Hopkinses coming out against, nurses dancing. We're starting to see the Daily Mail really sort of getting about critical, other elective surgeries and other NHS care being pushed back as a result of coronavirus. Now, when we talked about flattening the curve in, the first days of this, it was obvious that other NHS work was going to have to be put to one side to a large degree to keep the capacity where it had to be. So for them to be 4 or 5 weeks down the line, digging them out for that is a bit two-faced and counterproductive. The Daily Mail also has an issue with nurses managing their morale by singing a few songs.
No, it's ridiculous.
You've got Mrs. Gove talking about fucking how our pals are refusing to take part in the lockdown anymore, and you're like, well, that's great to think that that's something that you can do, but where are you going to go? Like a shut restaurant? You're going to go to a shut pub? You're going to go to a shut cinema? Like, fucking shut up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, that narrative...
These people are now starting to, boil the pot. They've sparked the heat under it now. And it's something I think we need to be wary of, because I think as we look to America, as we have done already today, this is potentially where we could go if we let these fucking nut jobs run their mouth and actually end up dictating policy, because that's what's happening, is that the government are getting pressure on for business to start easing lockdowns with your Bransons and all these types that are out with the begging bowls when they don't need to be, putting pressure on the government. The government knew, thinking to themselves, we now need to transmit that pressure, as we always have done, to the British public so that they feel obliged to agree with our policy making.
Yep.
And this is how, through these talking heads, things like the austerities and all that have always been justified, and it's how they're going to do this. It's how they're going to push for the lockdown to be eased, potentially ahead of its time, and cause that second wave that, you know, we're potentially going to face down the line, way ahead of it needing to happen.
Yeah. I think when you look at I mean, we spoke about this in a previous episode about working through sort of like a phase of pandemic porn where people are watching like documentaries and movies about fucking viruses and whatever. I get it. But if anybody does watch that, or anybody has paid attention, the second wave of a virus is normally the most devastating wave. So we're on wave 1, and we've potentially got something coming over the hill that could be twice as bad as what we're facing just now. And I don't see any news outlet, whether it be left, right, Guardian, whatever, talking about this. They're almost like just ignoring it, I think, hoping that it doesn't happen. Either that, or like exactly what you've just been saying, they're shaping the narrative to get us back out there and put us in harm's way. I think that I've seen that narrative come from some right bastard people on the right about, well, if you look at the NHS nurses, what they did making TikToks and blah, blah, blah. And also, I've seen the Daily Mail run a story about how there hasn't been enough COVID-19 cases in Birmingham for anybody to be admitted to their Nightingale hospital. So I would say that, well, that's evidence that...
They don't have the staff for these hospitals. That's part of the reason why nobody's ever went into any of them, is that a number of them don't have the staff, you know what I mean? So it's again, it's being pliable with what's actually happening for the sake of their own agenda. And you're seeing it as well, as you say, with these far-right figures. You've got fucking Nick Griffin dishing out food parcels, and you've got, you know, Britain First, you know, manning phone banks, and it's exactly the same as what we were talking about last week with guys like fucking Piers Morgan and The Sun. Trying to be bastions of the NHS now all of a sudden, bastions of truth and virtue. Like, it's all just literally fucking window dressing.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Man. I mean, one of the things that I had heard was that the BNP have had 3 conferences since the lockdown, or since COVID-19 has become an issue, since it was declared a pandemic. And off the back of that, I also heard that people like Bannon are out telling these far-right figures, of which they've got like a network of people, like we know for Brexit, through the Cambridge Analytica stuff, they're all in a network, and they all communicate with each other, and they all keep each other in tabs. He's advising that people...
It's harder to track now than ever before. In the past, it was you went to, you know, the Daily Stormer or whatever it is and read the comment section, but it's all telegraphs and WhatsApp groups, and like, it's really difficult unless you're actually on the ground with these guys to, you know, track really what's going on with them.
Absolutely, but he's giving out advice to people, telling them to go and do these positive PR things, because we are currently in a state of flux. So if you look at, this is the type of thing where, so I heard somebody talk about what should the left be doing right now. In Europe, the left is not in power. Like, it's either the centre, or if you look at other places, it's the right. We've got a right-wing government. Italy's right-wing. France has got Macron, who's a centrist. Germany's centrist. But places like Poland, Hungary, these places have all got sort of right-wing, no far-right, but right-wing governments in place. But what should the left be doing? And one of the sort of bits of advice is that they should, and we've seen this happen, we've seen this be mentioned across everything, is that they should just go bipartisan, and they should sort of shelf all political agenda, and we should all just come together and sort of help each other, and then we can be critical at the other side. I genuinely don't think that that's what Starmer's doing. I think that he's just a centrist, and he's just playing that political game by saying we shouldn't question the government. I don't think he's of the left and taking this type of advice. But if you look at what the left's doing in the UK while we're in flux, is that they're, like you've just mentioned, people like Griffin, the BNP, these people are there doing it like, we're here to help, and do you know what? Fuck off, man. Get that to fuck.
Maybe not the right term, but they're essentially trying to whitewash themselves, aren't they?
Absolutely.
And it's not just that either. I read again another great article in The Guardian through the week where they were talking about some of these issues related to the far right, and it doesn't just go to them trying to use coronavirus to promote their own, self-image in a positive light. It's also become about undermining the opposition, which isn't an unusual tactic for, the far right, but this is taking the form in things like leafleting as if they're Extinction Rebellion, talking about the human virus and how this is all everybody's fault and blah, blah, blah. And like, so actively, taking part in disinformation. So I think alongside, some of the other stuff we need to be careful that we've talked about in recent weeks, like this is another one. Like, I think it's really important.
Yeah,
no matter what you're watching on the internet,
thing that I had read and heard,
where it comes from.
Sorry, mate. The thing that I had read and heard about the sort of Nick Griffin and the connection with Bannon and stuff had said that these people are looking to flank the right. So it's the far right looking to outflank the right wing that's in power. So because we've made the steps over the last sort of 15, 20 years to the centre right, now these people are going to try and do sort of PR campaigns or in whatever way, shape or form to try and convince people that they're the ones that should be. One of the ones that really sort of made my jaw hit the floor was it had been mentioned in this interview about the guy, James something. He's like basically like the figurehead of the Yellow Vests in the UK. He had been on a podcast where they were saying that and this, I've just laughed before I fucking say this, that the dilution of white culture in Northern Europe has meant that we've not been able to tackle coronavirus, because if we had been a predominantly white society, we'd have come up with a vaccine already.
Wow.
So that's fucking so fucking... This guy's an idiot.
So
do you know
we're
what I mean?
dying of coronavirus because we're not white enough?
Exactly. And I think this is something that stemmed from 4chan and 8chan, where when it was Chinese people dying, they were claiming that they were the only race that had the protein to contract the disease, and we were all right because we were white. And then that narrative changed as it spread to Italy and Spain and blah, 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 and people calling the Italians non-whites and stuff like that, some crazy shit. But there's a couple of sort of really sort of, this is the type of thing that we really do need to watch for. In Hungary, their leader has declared that he can rule by decree and there would be no end date to that. So in a sort of Patriot Act 9/11 style George W. Bush, he can then become basically an authoritarian leader, and there's no sort of time scale for him getting the powers back. And if history's told us anything, he won't give them back.
Well, why would you?
Exactly. But not just that, like, while people can't go out and actually protest, like, a couple of wee things have happened, like, he's brought in a couple of sort of laws about trans rights. He's a big sort of anti-trans.
So he's legislating out with a COVID-19 pretty much instantly. So he's used this as a power grab.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's instant evidence of it.
Yeah.
Can't imagine that's the only place that's the case.
No, because in Poland, they've pushed through anti-abortion laws. So in Poland, every time that the right-wing government try and get these anti-abortion laws put through, they mass protest, and basically it just becomes apparent that they can't get it through. But during this sort of lockdown, they've managed to push through this anti-abortion law. So
like exactly what we talked about in the first couple of weeks, doing these, just me and you, was we need to be careful of how far people reach with their power. And this is two examples straight away. It's not even taking 6 weeks for it to start on, continental Europe, and you're just like, that shit I thought we were past. You know what I mean? Like, it's really unfortunate that we're not. But again, at times like this, when you look at the far right, and you look at, even to a slightly lesser extent, because they're using the same tactics, the Hopkinses and the Mrs. Goals and the Daily Mails and all the rest of it, they're using fear to promote their own agenda, to promote themselves, to promote their profiles. And, like, it's something that we need to be... This is the end of the spectrum, is actual power grabs.
Yeah.
And at the bottom end of the spectrum is Katie Hopkins booing nurses, and then, all these other examples that we've talked about fill the spectrum as you go along the line, you know what I mean? Like, but they're all part of the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, they're all, they're not in the best interests of the many here at all. Like, there's no communal concern with these people. It's all about their agenda and their, ambitions.
Yeah.
It's miles off. And I think it's not the only part of it, really, because we've had the Prime Minister come back to work today, talking about how other countries might look to our successes enviously, and I think like we are into like proper sort of fake news, sort of through the looking glass territory here, where this guy is just going to balls out, just fucking brass neck it. I mean, we've seen the Financial Times figures during the week, and this was something that kind of quite surprised me because I get that data cannot be real time on this one. You know, like there are a number of facilities, there are thousands, tens of thousands of people sick and dying and elsewhere. Like it's in flux, it's moving, it's fluid. But I didn't expect the figures that are getting quoted as at 5 p.m. briefings and in some cases to be nearly 2 weeks old. Like, I would have thought that they were more real time than that, personally. So the Financial Times run at a point when the official figure was something like 17,000, that the actual deaths in the UK were closer to 40,000. The day I've looked at the running figure, it's closer to 43, and they're saying that in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and some places there are up to 2 week delays in getting data. You know, there was one instance where government ministers appeared to point to a dip in numbers as a sign that we had got beyond the peak, when in actual fact the numbers dipped because of a bank holiday weekend where not necessarily less people died, but less people were recorded to dying. So it's one of the ones where I don't know, man. Like I'm a bit, I don't get why the numbers aren't closer. I don't get why we're not including care homes. I don't get why there's so many stipulations as to what we can and can't include. And I know that it's models that are being used elsewhere by other countries, but like, what is wrong with just telling us what's actually going on, or as close to what's actually going on as possible?
Absolutely, mate.
Do you know what I mean? That this is way worse than what we even know. I know that obviously like 20,000 people have died in hospital, but that's just the sort of potentially the tip of the iceberg.
Aye.
I don't know, man. Like, I really don't. No idea why we wouldn't be getting told, other than that there's something going on that they don't want us to know because they don't want like mass panic.
Aye.
I don't know, man.
And you don't really want to go down that road. You want to, as much as I don't want to be sounding too Keir Starmery and being like pure trust the government, you know what I mean? There has to be a level of scepticism, a level of like critical thought, and a level of examination. But at the same time, when there are such glaring deficiencies in between what the government's telling us and what somebody like the Financial Times can publish, and as you say, subsequent issues that we need to address and prepare for. If we can't handle PPE now, you know what I mean? What happens if there is a second wave? Like, there are thousands of questions to answer in line with that we're just not really looking at. And maybe it is best that we don't right now. I don't know. But it does feel as though something's off. And I think when people go, oh, well, you're being cynical, or, you know, you're just at it. Like, I seen a story through the week where kind of very similar to, you know, the time where the Tories decided that they were going to change their name to Fact Check UK. A guy ran with a story saying that there had been 128 essentially fake NHS bots created to tweet out pro government tweets, so stuff in favour of like herd immunity and stuff like that. And the Department of Health came out and somewhat unironically decided that the best way to combat accusations of using bots was to respond to every tweet with a bot. So it kind of undermined their, you know, denial a wee bit to me, to be honest with you. They're going, we're not using bots, by responding with 10,000 posts for a bot. It was like, okay. But the author of that tweet has subsequently went, look, I'm going to go away. I've got other information. I'm going to go and check the legalities, and then I'm going to come back to you. But when he says he's coming back to you, he was like, I'm aware of what happened to the whistleblowers during Cambridge Analytica. And you're like, hold on a minute. Like, this guy's story, as much as it's tapered off in the last few days, he thinks that it's as big as Cambridge Analytica, which in recent terms is a fucking massive story in the UK context. But like, if he thinks this is that big, I'd be very interested to see how far, you know, how much further down the rabbit hole it goes, because you can't also be like, oh, you need to trust the government unequivocally, but at the same time, you know, we're just going to respond with a standard email for a bot when he accuses a malpractice. You know what I mean? Like, again, it does that thing where it undermines their position and it leaves space for doubt. You know what I mean? Like, but again, that's one I'll be watching, and I think it reflects with quite a lot of what we've already discussed. Where how do you trust a government that appears to be lying and then trying to hide it.
I mean, that story about the bots was just, I mean, you're like, what the fuck? Like, it actually, like, blows my mind. That again, these are the types of things that you just don't expect to be happening. You don't expect there to be Twitter profiles getting made to, like, it makes you question everything, that shit. And again, come back to previous episodes, this is what feeds the conspiracy community. This is why people are out there fucking burning down 5G and going crazy with this shit, because time and time again it comes back, or something happens where you're just like, that's why people don't trust anything, any official narrative that's coming out.
Yeah.
You almost don't blame people at that. But this is Cambridge Analytica 2.0, I've got no doubt about it.
I don't know what the thought process is for it. You know what I mean? Like, to go, we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, there are national deficiencies in PPE and any number of things that we've discussed over recent weeks and have been covered in the press at length. But my priority here is to make 130 fake nurse accounts so that it looks as though nurses are happy with what's going on. Like, that's a pretty fucking sinister thought process if that is what has actually happened. So I'll get the benefit of the doubt now and say if, because the guy who obviously posted this thread is away checking legalities and stuff like that. But if you've been doing that thought process at a time like this, it's fairly sinister. And it probably gives credence to a lot of people's concerns about guys like Dominic Cummings sitting in on SAGE meetings, which is a story that broke in the last few days, where SAGE are the scientific community's advisory group to the government on these types of things, and it turns out that there's political aides sitting on it, and you're like, how do we trust the impartiality, a decision-making of a scientific body when it's allowing political agitators, political representatives of the government on the board and involving themselves in that decision-making process? I've seen a lot of folk being like, of course the government aides are on it. Of course they are. You know what I mean? Like, how else would they? But like, that's never been the case before. Like, so don't talk to us as if this is a certainty that has to be accepted when it's a standard that has never been allowed in the past. Like,
I've seen
these things need to be independent.
I've seen Andrew Neil tweeting, like, why wouldn't a government advisor be included in a meeting like this?
Aye, wasn't he the only one?
Aye, of course there is the historical, like, precedent, and then they could come back to the argument of, well, we're living in unprecedented times. Okay, fair enough. Let's think about it like that. But when it's fucking the UK eugenic kid himself that's sitting on these meetings, and then he's coming back, and the way that the Guardian had wrote it, and obviously the Guardian and whoever's wrote it's got their own bias, and I understand that, was more along the lines of that he's there and he's then interpreting that and going back and feeding that and advice to the government. So
he's skewing it through the prism of his own thought process before he hands it back.
And if you look at this guy's thought process, it's some scary fucking shit. So I appreciate that there might be government advisors, but you're not even getting, if it's that important, why is he not gone himself? Why is Boris not gone himself? Like, why is there nobody for the Scottish side yet, or the Welsh side yet getting included in this? It's this specific one guy, or there was two of them, that was there.
I suppose you'd probably need to find Johnson first to work out why he's not attending meetings, to be fair, and hiding in his fucking metaphorical fridge. But now that there's actually some good news to share with people, he wants to step out and be the face of it. And I'm pretty sure I've seen 10,000 people on Twitter call that like 3 weeks ago, so, you know, fair play to them if you had that on at the bookies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I don't know how much I buy into it, because they announced last week that it's another 3 weeks and that they've been a sort of, we'll revisit it after 3 weeks. So I don't know. I think that's probably been, like you're saying, the rumours that went about before, and people putting two and two together. But we'll find out tomorrow. We can talk about that sort of like next week. But the scary thing, I mean, another thing that I'd seen being commented on is that the different sort of arms of the Tories are starting to really sort of insulate themselves or try and get away from any of the blame that's going to come out post this. There's talk of Boris has got like sort of 4 or 5 different
excuses.
One of them being our friend that you just previously mentioned, Dominic Cummings, and there's a lot of stuff getting sort of leaked out there. I mean, there's no coincidence that the Guardian's getting all this information. And people are blowing the whistle and like his attitude and the way that he sees things in the last few weeks, and then he's in the SAGE meeting and blah blah blah. He's one element there. The next sort of level of protection he's got is guys like Dominic Raab, Michael Gove.
So that's where my money is. I think Gove will be sacrificed. No Gove. Raab will be sacrificed. The other side of this is the designated survivor to the court of public opinion, and then after like 6 months when he's been out of office, they'll fucking fire him a knighthood.
And throw him a bone.
Aye.
I don't see how in any way he can protect himself with like these sort of like body shields that are like other politicians or advisors that are out there.
He's just going to balls out, just stand there and go, I wasn't here, none of this was me. He's not trying to convince me, he's trying to convince the idiots that have already voted for him. You know what I mean? Like, they're the ones he needs next time. He does to believe a fucking word that he says. You know what I mean? Like, he needs the numpties that went out there en masse and voted him in 3 months ago to go out in 4 years' time and date again. So he's speaking to them, not us, and they'll believe anything, as is obviously the case so far. You know what I mean?
No, that's worrying. That's seriously worrying. I've seen a lot of people sort of talk about the way that it's been reported inside and outside the UK and the US is sort of like you can see the glaring differences in how we're talking about our government's response and the American government's response. I mean, me and we spoke earlier on. We're getting to see the balls and all Trump like response. We're getting all of that information. We get to see it all, but how much that we get to see of our government's response and how that's been perceived in other media outlets outside the UK is supposed to be like glaring difference. I mean, we're awake to this because of 2014. We seen the two different front pages of newspapers inside Scotland and outside of Scotland and England. So we kind of know that this goes on, but there's a lot of people in England that would be shocked if we were to tell them that was the case. Yeah,
the UK response must be absolutely appallingly received outside of the UK. I think the only evidence of that we should ever really need was the story this week of, I don't know if you've seen this, the two Vietnamese children who donated the pocket money they had saved whilst, and they called it lucky money, it's like birthday money, Christmas money, etc. That these two, no Vietnamese children across the country, two Vietnamese kids saved up their pocket money and bought 20,000 bits of PPE and then donated it to the UK. So that is how the UK response is being received outside the UK, and that Vietnamese children are donating their pocket money to buy PPE for us.
Oh my God!
You know what I mean?
I mean, how do we get ourselves this? How do we get ourselves to these reports? Like, you don't see them. Like, I'm not seeing them anywhere. So there must be some way that we can get ourselves to this sort of reporting. I suppose it would need to be translated, but the way that we reported the crisis that when it was in Italy was like
significantly different.
Yeah, and we have already got more people dead in the time scale that they've seen, and our record day is way more than what their record day was, and so that kind of should set the alarm bells ringing that we're not getting told the full story.
Definitely. I think in terms of the Goves and the Rabs and the Johnsons and Cummings and all the rest of it and their, notions of what it means to be a leader at this time, I think in stark contrast, I'd probably like to take a couple of minutes to actually big up the First Minister. I think in terms of her response. Now, this is somebody that can't win. If she says nothing, she gets stick. If she talks before the UK government, she gets stick. If she talks after the UK government, she gets stick. If she acts before or after the UK government, she gets stick. And she's just went on. I think she's been really fun. I think she's been really open. I think she's been really direct. And I really appreciated her coming at it from a human perspective this week by talking in the press about how this situation had even impacted her own mental health negatively, and that how she was having to be more conscious of her health, her well-being, exercise. I think at one point she was on doing her hair and nails on YouTube or something like that, along with people, and like putting a real like human face on it. I think it offers a really stark contrast to some of the almost kind of like machismo driven nonsense that's going on down south or in America, or with guys like Bolsonaro in Brazil, as we were talking the other week there. And it's a sentiment I've kind of seen kind of echoed in a number of places in the last week or two, not so more so than with Jamie, who's been in a few times to talk about UBI. He shared an article about how women leaders were being sort of widely praised almost all across the world for their approach. Like, I know I'm pretty much almost fed up hearing about the New Zealand Prime Minister and how absolutely awesome she is. Obviously, Nicola Sturgeon comes a close second at the minute in the sort of worldwide stakes, I would say, but at the same time, there's a real stark contrast to be looked at here in terms of how maybe administrations run by men and administrations run by women have approached this, because there's been a lot of praise going to countries run by women at the minute versus a lot of criticism run by men. So I think that's something that would be quite interesting to look at down the line. But in terms of our First Minister, I think our performance throughout the last couple of weeks has been absolutely top draw.
Aye, and I agree. Like, I think there's been zero like that human element that you're talking about there. The English Parliament of Westminster, or the UK Parliament, we've had no sort of like honest conversations about how it's impacting them, and it is actually like sort of weird hearing somebody being like, this situation's even impacting me, and then they're seeing pictures on her social media, like what books she's reading, like she was going doing her hair and makeup and talking about her own sort of well-being. It's a different approach to politics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, man, I welcome it wholeheartedly, because
definitely
it does make you feel connected to that person. And one, do you know what I mean? It's no somebody that you're like, I've got nothing in common with you. There was a video of her outside of house in the south side of Glasgow clapping for the NHS.
Yep.
You see the British equivalent, they're coming outside the front of Parliament and standing and clapping in front of Parliament, which is like keeping their elite status and no dropping that sort of garb. And I'll genuinely go out there and be on whatever to say that I think it's because we've realised that they're all fucking reptiles. If they do, like sort of shift the curtain a wee bit and let us see inside the house, that torture chambers in the background are fucking Dominic.
If we were allowed to see what their equivalent of being a human being was, would never want to look again, probably. But I think it is that human. It's kind of back to where we started, in that need for human contact, that need for society, or for the ability to socialise. And I think Nicola Sturgeon has echoed that in a big way, not just by being on the ball when it comes to policy, not just by being on the ball when it comes to, some of the criticism she's faced or some of the challenges that the Scottish Government have faced as part of this four-country approach, but also that human element, because I think we're all starting to miss that human part of our lives, you know what I mean? And I think having an actual real person out there going, look, this is tough, it's tough for me, it's tough for you, but we'll get through it, is immensely reassuring. And as I say, it's something that I've definitely garnered a wee bit merrier kind of like, okay, right, perspective in a sense, you know what I mean? I think...
anything else that we're wanting to talk about?
I kind of picked up on you talking about chaos last week. Where the obviously, if anybody didn't quite catch it, it was a book about how Charles Manson may have been involved in and affected by MK Ultra and MK Ultra adjacent kind of experiments during the 50s and 60s that may or may not have led down the line to what Charles Manson and the Manson family eventually did. Yeah. And it wasn't so much the Manson element that kind of got me, because you covered that quite extensively last week. But I had a look at the Joe Rogan podcast that you'd mentioned, and there was a passing comment about Whitey Bulger. And Whitey Bulger, if anybody's seen recently the movie Black Mass with Johnny Depp, that's Whitey Bulger, all right? One of sort of Boston's biggest ever gangsters, and head of the Winter Hill gang. Like a really kind of like Manson, like a really iconic American figure within the sort of crime spheres and stuff like that.
Right.
And in the podcast, it was just a sort of passing comment that he also said that he'd been affected by this, and I was like, that's weird that you could have somebody like Manson, somebody like Whitey Bulger, who in American terms are these, cultural figures almost in a lot of senses, be subject to the same kind of MK Ultra-esque experimentation. So I did kind of like do a bit of reading on the Bulger stuff, and like the experience that he described was frighteningly similar to what Manson was describing, or what the author of the book related to Manson was describing. Picked up in prison, obviously experimented on extensively with hallucinogens. Once they got out of prison on the other side of this, found themselves protected for the law when they should have both maybe found themselves in jail. Rumours from both the author and related to Bulger that they were federal sort of collaborators. So like a lot of like really like close similarities to the two, even though, they're quite disparate figures to each other. You know what I mean? They will have never have met. I think one of the most fucked up things I've seen in it was that Bulger described moving to Alcatraz as a relief. So Bulger was put in Alcatraz at the peak Alcatraz. It was just a hovel and an island off the coast of whatever it is, San Francisco. And like he's seen going to that rat-infested pit as an actual bonus, because where he'd been previously had experimented on so extensively that he couldn't sleep any more than 3 hours a night. He didn't sleep with a partner or with a pet in the room because he would wake up at night and be in violent fits and stuff like that.
Okay.
Both of them described seeing blood coming down walls and these types of things. And like there was a like real similarity, and I was like, that's fucked up that something like MK Ultra potentially could have created two of America's most famous killers, and like wondering like what responsibility does the American government have for putting that in place and causing these guys to go off the rails in the manner that they did. But kind of separate to Chaos, I also watched, just in passing, I watched a thing on Netflix, Unabomber in his own words, and it's again quite an iconic American sort of crime figure. The Unabomber ran for 18 years and essentially used a lack of forensics to basically fuck with the FBI for the best part of 2 decades. And that's really what he was doing. He was sending bombs, he was perfecting himself trying to kill, but he was also trying to show the FBI how stupid and dumb they were, because this guy had an IQ of like 170. But at the end of that, he actually talks about experiments that were done on him while he was at college. And like the Manson thing, and like obviously Bulger, the guys who were involved in that went on to hold really high positions within the CIA on things like interrogation and brainwashing and blah, blah, blah. But the guy who experimented on Kaczynski, who later became the Unabomber, also was the guy who wrote the CIA's handbook on enhanced interrogation. So this guy spent 3 years. This guy spent 3 years with initially a 16-year-old Kaczynski, because as a genius, he went to university at 16 years old.
Yeah, that's right.
But then spent 3 years going in on a daily basis with this guy, and the point of the experiment was to undermine everything he thought about himself. So they were asking him about his political philosophy, about his life, about his interests, and this is a young guy who's came from quite a sheltered background and is already extremely socially awkward. And they spent 3 years basically dismantling his personality in very similar terms to. So if this wasn't an MK Ultra experiment, it was MK Ultra adjacent, because it was happening at the same time. It was happening in universities like we knew it was happening in prisons and in the army. There was very similar structures to how it was. There wasn't an open use of hallucinogens here, but MK Ultra experimented with torture, with beration, with all sorts of things. So very similar tactics. And I'm going, see if you were to do like a top 10 American killers, you've got Bundy, Dahmer, Son of Sam, but like Unabomber, Bulger, and Manson are all on that list of the top 10, and you're talking about a US government experiment potentially creating something like 3 out of the top 10 famous killers in the country's history. And that to me is just when I seen that, I was like, fucking hell, man. Like, so again, I was away reading similar kind of terms, and like the similarities in the three stories, or those parts of the three stories, is absolutely terrifying. So it is like, I don't know if in your reading you picked up on the Unabomber side of it at all or no?
Do you know, I watched the Unabomber in his own words, and I completely missed him talk about experiments, and I watched it back when it first came out, so I hadn't started reading Chaos, I hadn't really engaged with any of the Tom O'Neill stuff, so it wasn't really like at the front of my mind, but I'd been like yourself, where we've had that conversation, and then you've watched that and went, wait a minute, what the fuck's that all about? But like on the fact that potentially 30% or 40% of the top 10 biggest killers in US history have been produced by like basically a government psychops is fucking wild, absolutely fucking wild. The one that, see, when you were talking there, the thing about the Kaczynski, other than the fact that his name is Ted as well, wasn't it? So they've got Bundy and Kaczynski, which is weird. We need to watch everybody.
Be wary of Ted, aye.
Is it Theodore or somewhere?
I think Theodore, or Theodore or Edward.
But the fact that his brother and his dad, when in that documentary, talk about how he went away for his first semester at university or college, come back a different person.
Yep.
So if they were conducting that experiment, and he's been vulnerable because he's been the youngest person there. He commented on how he was alienated for everybody. He couldn't really socialise with people, so he's been alone and he's not had anybody to go to. And if they were experimenting on him and it completely changed his personality over, I mean, what's a semester, like 4 months? Something like that. You can only imagine the type of fucking impact they could have if they had people at their beck and call like 24/7 like they did through the prison system. And they've got his conducted over the course of years of doing this to people. Like,
they've got his diaries, and he first considered killing during the beginning of these experiments because his political philosophy has something that, see, when you actually read his manifesto, like people say, like, this guy was. See if he just cut the bombs out, this guy would have been a founding member of Greenpeace or whatever it is. Like, his theory is absolutely rock solid. He was anti-technology, pro-environment. He was like a pioneer, and in certain respects, he was light years ahead of his time. And you know, it's hard to recognise that now because he blew people up for a living. But at the same time, what he wrote was no wrong. So having that philosophy challenged in the manner where it was for such a long period of time by somebody who was an eminent psychologist who then went on to write the playbook on enhanced interrogation, what chances are, even a 16-year-old genius, what chances a 16-year-old got against that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely crazy.
Mind. He's had a powerful mind, and it's probably been the case that they've wanted to see how, like, will this impact somebody with increased intelligence? You've got to imagine that. I heard somebody talk about it, and I don't remember where, if it was a podcast or whatever, but they said that over the course of 24 hours for when that went live on Netflix, his manifesto had been downloaded some sort of crazy amount of time. And the amount of people that were commenting basically saying that you need to read it because it is actually a bit of genius.
It's like a seminal bit of writing.
Yeah, but then obviously the guy has went on to then murder a lot of people. I mean, the bit in the documentary where he talks about, I think it was in his recordings, and the woman then held it where he was sitting with basically like a rifle and a scope on this woman and her daughter, and just decided in the moment not to pull the trigger. You're like,
she was there with a toddler.
Scary shit, man. That is like, what the fuck? But man, the MK Ultra stuff kind of feeds into the sort of Operation Paperclip stuff where they go the sort of German doctors and the people that were basically the thinking behind the German war machine and split them between Soviet Union and America, and it's all sort of stemmed to that. And we know the kind of experiments the Nazis were doing in Nazi Germany. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier on, where people just point out this thing where we could end up here, we could end up in a Nazi authoritarian state, or we could end up in a communist state where millions of people will die and blah blah blah. And the actual reality of the situation is that they adopted all the worst fucking parts of these societies.
Yeah, 50 years, 60 years ago.
Fucking chest raised with them. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah, Aye, man, absolutely bonkers. But that was probably one of the areas where your love for conspiracy theory and my love for true crime kind of intersected there through the week, and I did. Kind of like you've described yourself in previous weeks, like when doing a bit of a rabbit hole. I watched a podcast with the witness. She was a juror on Whitey Bulger's trial, and obviously had voted him guilty for a number of the crimes that he was legitimately guilty for. But he was let off with something like 8 murders during that trial, and she befriended Bulger after the trial, and this is when he started to break down, where his life sort of thing. She was a novelist who had written about the American Civil War, and knew about the Constitution, and had went like a lot of went on in that court case was against the Constitution, and sparked up a friendship with him. And this kind of like MK Ultra stuff was a bit by the by. Like, she never paid a lot of attention to it, neither did he, but it was part of the conversations they detailed as they became friends after the trial, which I also thought was quite weird. But it's funny how these things get out. I would never in a million years put Kaczynski, Bulger, and Manson together beyond, like a list of top 10 American serial killers. You know what I mean? But in actual fact, they're all linked potentially by some form of this school of thought. It's
and the bit that really gets me about that, when we talk about like the Manson thing last week, is that it was all in the name of anti-communism, that they were trying to infiltrate sort of radical groups like the Black Panthers and cause arguments between the people that were in charge and split other groups off. And
divide and conquer again.
Divide and conquer, but they ended up costing people's lives, and this is all just collateral damage when it comes to governments. Like, they don't give a fuck.
Aye. Same as Thatcher and the miners, and or the as I say, the IRA infiltrators that you were talking about earlier on. It's no a new thing, and it's certainly not something that's went away either.
Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing it in the digital sense, where they're creating doctors and nurses to go out there.
Aye.
You know what I mean? Like,
to astroturfers.
Aye, it's the fucking playbook, man. Like, it's hard.
The technology changes, but the story stays the same.
Exactly. It's hard not to end up doing that sort of thought path when all these bits and pieces all come together. But there has been so many times where all the bits and pieces have came together and go wildly wrong. But
then see on the other side there, it is. Don't get me wrong. I did get a wee bit, more enjoyment out of conspiracy theory type stuff than I have done in the past, just because it was something that was so fresh in my mind. But on the flip side there, here's something that I also kind of considered. So the US government did experiments on people that, in some instances, led to really violent individuals out there in the population who did some real serious damage over prolonged periods of time. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, the American government was then able to pioneer criminology off the back of these guys. So fingerprints, DNA, all the surveillance, and this all in a lot of senses came from the fear of serial killers, the fear of the guy under your bed or in your cupboard attacking you in your home, and handwriting analysis, speech analysis, gait analysis, all the analyses that now become standard practice in a criminal court case or a manhunt, all stem for these guys and trying to hunt these guys over prolonged periods of time without success. But then it's almost cyclical in a sense, in that the American government essentially created these guys. These guys created the need for the technology, and then the technology was created to catch these guys. You know what I mean? It's all one big kind of loop, and it was kind of weird to think about in those terms, that how much our modern world and our modern ideas of policing come from when we hunted these guys 40 years ago.
Problems that were purposefully created. Well, not purposefully created, because I would like to think that the people out there, like the psychologists and the drug doctors and the scientists, weren't they trying to create serial killers?
No.
I mean, there's the conspiracy theory that MK Ultra was about basically creating sort of ready-made assassins like that.
Aye.
Sort of sleeper
Manchurian.
Manchurian candidates. I mean, in our modern world and in our culture, it's always Russian. It's always the Russian sleeper agent. Like, if you watch Family Guy, there's the scene that's just coming pure flashing out in my mind where Meg gets woke up and she's the Russian sleeper agent. When that might be true, and that's been proved over the course of the years as well through documentation when the Soviets sort of imploded.
Still there in things like Treadstone, the Bourne spin-off. You've also got it more recently. Where was the? No, lost my chain of thought there. But aye, there are
These things
examples.
Our government
sorry,
doing
Killing
as well.
Eve. Killing Eve was the other one. You've got
Yeah,
a lassie. I love a
exactly.
puddling lassie playing a fucking Russian assassin. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you
they're
think
still the
it's
bad
safe to
guy.
say that everything that has ever been the fingers ever been pointed at other governments out there with the went, look what they're doing, look how we're so much better to our people, has probably been done by every fucking government.
Oh,
and
aye,
every regime
absolutely.
on the planet. Probably
I mean,
safe
these
bet,
guys in
but
Paperclip that you're talking about were getting jailed and getting convicted as part of the Nuremberg trials. The Nuremberg trials led to new statutes all across the world on human experimenting that outlawed it. And then they took all these guys that they just convicted at Nuremberg and gave them all homes in America to start their work. And the only difference was that they now worked under an American instead of a Nazi. You know what I mean? Like, so, aye, there's a
I mean, the guy
hypocrisy.
that created the fucking nuclear bomb.
Oppenheimer.
No, the other guy, that ended up creating NASA. He made the V2 bomber.
Von Braun.
Von Braun, like Von Braun. That guy was an absolute fucking. Apparently, that guy in Nazi Germany was like one of the top guys. Was one of the sort of.
He levelled London with the V2. You know what I mean?
And this guy took in and gave a fucking high-powered job, and the American regime, and ended up like so rich and so part of their culture, and like that's the bit where you sort of go, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys? I don't think they genuinely don't give a fuck what it's about your value. It's about what you can bring to the table, and if you can bring something of value and their opinion to the table, they will absolutely give you a platform to, like, so that they can get the most out of that.
And that's how these psychologists get away with it. That's how these guys that experimented on Manson, experimented on Bulger, and experimented on Kaczynski get away with it, because they then contributed to how the CIA interrogates, how they, use enhanced interrogation and all these other things. Like, this guy that interviewed Kaczynski was the dude who invented the spotlight in the face technique. So the thing that you see is the standard unit of measure in every spy movie, the spy tied to the chair with the spotlight in his face. The guy that, essentially verbally abused Kaczynski for 3 years, that was his. Like, he invented that shit. You know what I mean? Like, so you're not talking about, like, insignificant people here. And that's, like you say, they were allowed to continue on with their horrible shit because they were contributing something that the government at the time wanted. And it didn't start then, and it probably hasn't stopped now. You know what I mean?
That's it, mate. Well, I'm happy to end it there, dude. Another fucking cracking wee episode, another like good chat, man. Sunday afternoon, just sitting about. But aye, man.
Exactly. I'm away to go and complete one of the 7 million polls that have popped up about what type of biscuit's your favourite, or whether you butter a digestive, or whether you sit on the left arse cheek or your right arse cheek, or whatever it is that's going on out there. So that's kind of how I'm going to be filling the rest of my day, because that seems to be it's my social media at the minute. What are your top 10 albums? What are your top 10 films? What's your favourite biscuit?
Well, I went into Facebook yesterday to get the Zoom link to that Zoom call last night for the quiz, and I had about 40 million notifications in Facebook, and it was all like nominations. And I'm going to need to post something, because I think people think when I post an Instagram story, it goes to my Facebook. They'll be assuming that I'm in Facebook and that I'm saying that. When no, I don't have Facebook. Like, I don't use it. It's just there so that I can use the Messenger app to keep in touch with certain people. And there'll be people out there that are like, this fucking prick, I've nominated them for like about 40 weeks.
Instead of just stopping nominating you, I did the opposite. I met in the middle between being disgusted by being nominated and no doing it, and realising that at this time I'd probably be being a bit of a prick. So what I did was, when I get nominated to do 10 movies, I just posted all 10 in the one go, because 8 days from now I'm not going to remember to do the other 2. And I was just like, anytime I get nominated, I just bang them all in the one go and be like, right, here's my participation here. But I'm going to be riveted down the line by how many people also prefer bourbon creams to custard creams. You know what I mean? That's the level of lockdown that we're all at elsewhere.
Well, if nothing else, we get to know each other a wee bit better, through fucking bourbon creams and custard creams. But dude, thanks very much, man, again. And we'll be back on it next week again, man.
No worries, man. Catch you soon, alright?
Lightning falls when there is panic in the sky. Thunder calls when all but fear is left to die. You tell it like it's fantasy, something that you're never going to be. Same old story every day. There's just one thing that I have to say, that if we believe, if we trusted you, then I don't know why you say the things you do. You'd see a whole new way to be, giving honest answers and not those lies to me. Empty halls now filled with echoes of their past. Honor stars, they lived each day like it's their last. You tell it like it's fantasy, something that you're never going to be. Same old story every day. There's just one thing that I have to say, that if we believe, if we trusted you, then I don't know why you say the things you do. You'd see a whole new way to be, giving honest answers and not those lies to me. I can tell that you're on a mission just to break the walls down time and time again. If it wasn't true, would it be okay to break the walls down time and time again? That if we believe, if we trusted you, then I don't know why you say the things you do. You'd see a whole new way to be, giving honest answers and not those lies to me. Believe, if we trusted you, then I don't know why you say the things you do. You'd see a whole new way to be, giving honest answers and not those lies to me.